What's up, guys? It's your boy AG, and today I'm going to show you guys an updated video on how to shred a couple of different today I'm doing jars. I don't think I have any bags ready, but same gist. But I wanted to do two different size and style totes, and two different styles of strands, I guess you could put it that way. We're going to do some mutated strands and then just a regular non-mutated strand. So I have 3 quart jars that I did a agar to grain transfer. These both are agar to grain transfers, and I wanted to go over something specifically with an agar to grain because I get asked this quite a lot about people having stalled out jars or bags, when they're after they mix them up the first time, their bags aren't recovering or jars aren't recovering, and it's because basically when you inoculate with liquid culture, it's already living mycelium. It's like basically alive. I don't know how else to put it. On agar, it is, but it's not at the stage of liquid culture yet. So it needs more mycelium to build up in order to recover, if that makes sense. So I always let my jars go like 50 to 60 plus percent before I shake them up the first time. The only drawback to that, if it's a jar, is you're going to get those couple big clumps in the middle, and then you're going to have some grains that are colonized but not as colonized as the ones that were part of that clump, which is fine. These have been going for like 2 months. But one thing in particular on totes that are bigger than bags, you're almost going to always run into an issue where the bag's not big enough if you're running a tote this size. The same totes that are taller, they actually have the same lids. I think they're like 56 or 60 something quart. But they actually have the same exact lids and top parts, or what is that, circumference, perimeter, whatever. Yeah, perimeter. Same exact perimeter, same exact lids. Sorry, I'm really, really high right now. But I wanted to get this made for a friend of mine that really needs some success. So we're going to get her rocking and rolling. So I like to go with a 2-to-1 ratio. In some previous videos, I actually switched up my style. I used to do it this way, and then I started putting down my base substrate, my grainspawn, and then I would actually mix it. And I was noticing smaller yields and longer colonization time. So I went back to this method, which is just layer of substrate, even layer of grainspawn, and an even layer of a casing layer on top. So you can actually get the bag, if you see where I'm at with my hands, with a little finessing, you can get the inside part right here to almost stretch perfectly with just a little tiny dip in one little corner, which I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so again, always, we're going to have our one hand, which is obviously my right hand because this is where my substrate is. Our left hand is going to be specifically for mixing and touching anything mycelium based. Yes, you could say. Because we do not want to cross contaminate. Always give that a good smell. And with mutation strands, they bruise, especially like after you shake them up quite a few times. So like these guys almost look like they're contaminated, but they're not. It's just real dark blue bruising. Let's get these. And again, mixing with the one hand won't cross contaminate, but will take more time, which is what it is. This is a hobby of patience. Now this tote, I don't have any fay holes cut in it or drilled in it. Mutation strands, they like that autoerotic asphyxiation. Just kidding. They like to be choked the fuck out. Who doesn't? Okay. Damn, these fuckers are bruised as shit. You can see the freaking dark ass blue. Okay. And I have plenty of grainspawn to cover the base of this. If there's a few chunks that are bigger, it's fine. As long as it's evenly distributed, I'm cool with it. Your one mixing hand will get tired as shit. Okay, let's get this spread in even. And you're always giving those jars a good whiff, but when you open them, always wanting that good, fresh mushroom smell. That's your indicator. Now, not always. Well, sometimes you'll have some mycelium that's so freaking powerful that it's like outpowering a contamination, but the contamination's still in there. And in fact, I have a jar that's exactly like that. You can see there's mold in the jar from where I fucked up. And the mycelium is still like out, like it's crazy. It's overtaking everything. Like it's fucking just nuts. All right, so we got our freaking base of substrate. We got our even layer here of grainspawn. Now we're just gonna put a nice thin layer of substrate over top. And you just want to cover the grains. If you have a couple poking out, you can just kind of push them down and go back over. I really shouldn't be doing this with my right hand because I need to grab more, which you totally should not do this, but I'm going to grab a piece of paper towel and wipe my hand off. Okay. At least just for the little part of my finger where I touch that grainspawn. Now you just want to get just the majority covered that you can kind of see, because we're going to come back after we trim our bag. So when you go to trim, start at one corner and you're just going to pull the bag, you know, taut as you're cutting, and you want to leave about 3/4 of an inch or so above the substrate, because on your second flush, instead of soaking these, you just spray them down real good, like I've showed you in other videos, and then add another small little light casing layer over top. Let them recolonize again for your second flush. And you want to leave about an inch, so that way when you put your casing layer on again, it you got a little bag there to keep it contained. Okay. Now I like to come up like a little V shape in the corners, so that way when you're done with them, you have little handles on the side in order to grab the cakes or the blocks out in order to toss them. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, so now that you're right here, there's a trick, and you're going to use the water that you're going to spray on the inside as your tape, you know, quote unquote, to latch in your bag to the sides. And then you're going to come back, and I'll show you why. Because the water will act as a suction. I just want to even this out. It acts as a suction cup for your bag. Since this is a mutation strand, it's going to take 3 times as long to fruit. See, it's how I'm just using the moisture to keep the bag right nice and tight to the perimeter here. And see, right here is one little dip, and then right here you have a little dip. And, you know, no matter what size bags you get, like even if you get bigger bags, you're gonna have that dip just because that's just how they're made. Maybe some super duper freaking big ones might have enough, but those are expensive as shit. And when you're running as many as I do, these cheap Walmart bags are what you go with, because they work and they're cheap. So now you're going to come in and come along the perimeter here and make sure your grains are not showing and there's no gaps, because that'll help keep from side pins. And when your block is, so you always want to take this into consideration. When your block is busy and spending energy producing side pins because there's gaps in your block here, that's energy that's taken away from bigger, you know, nicer fruits that it could be producing. Always remember, you know, there's not exponential amount of energy that the block can produce. it only produces how much grains and nutrients it has inside of it. So you want to do your best to give it its best, let it live its best life and fruit its best fruits. So that's her. Now, give your lid a good spray. Boom, 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 you're done. Put a label on it, stick it on the shelf with ambient light, and you know, check it from time to time. Mutation strands, you will never want to open the lids. You'll never want to fan them. Even when they're fruiting, I don't fan them at all because they love that high CO2 and they love to be just choked off. So no modifications. You know, maybe a little fan at the end, but I don't. So on to tub 2. Let me go ahead and wash my gloves off real quick, and we'll be back in just a second. So we'll pause. I'll pause you guys since I love you so much. We'll pause you. All right, what's up, my peoples? Okay, we're back. All right, now let's get back to brass tacks here. Down to business. Okay. So on to tote number 2. Grab this little guy here. God, I got too much shit going on. Okay. All right. So I got these totes because I usually run 23/4. They're a little bit wider, and you can't. These are just not quite enough grains for one of those. But I still wanted something that was taller that I could use for natalancents. I can't even pronounce shit today. Because those fuckers go really, really tall and a little stringy at first until you get them isolated. But they grow super, super tall. So I wanted to test out a couple of totes like these that I could do agar to grain transfers because I always use quart-sized jars for that. I'm trying to use a half-gallon size mason jar for A to G transfers. I don't know what it is, but there's just, no matter how much mycelium you let build up, man, a lot of times you can run into like this soupy grain poop moisture bullshit at the bottom. It just fucking, I don't know, man. Like, a lot of times it'll recover, but you got freaking that much bullshit you can't really use just because it, I don't know, it just looks suspect, and I never use it. I don't really get contams. But a lot of times, almost always when I'm doing agar to grain transfers, it's usually a cross that I'm doing or from a clone. That's the only time I do A to G transfers. Now I'm also, with switching back to the layering instead of mixing, I'm also going with a little bit less substrate. I noticed I was just starting to use a little too much per tote. My blocks were getting a little too thick, and I had to thin them out a little bit. Plus, I was going through fucking hundreds of goddamn pounds of substrate a month. It was ridiculous. So this is a lot better all around. See, okay, so let me just show you here if you can kind of see. That's, you know, like perfectly enough to just, you know, get you a cover. It'll cover everything perfectly without any little gaps. And that's what you want for that even colonization. Oops. See, boom. All right, it's looking good, even. Again, if you see any grains just pop up, just push them down with your finger and just respread right over. Should be fine. Okay, now with these, it's a little easier. So I always like to leave where my substrate comes up to. I have like an inch gap between that and my fay holes. That way I can still leave, you know, that 3/4 inch extra on my bag liner for the next flush, but they're not covering my fresh air exchange holes. I mean, if they're covering, you know, like the little tiny bottom centimeter or something, it's fine. Don't sweat it, but you just don't want them covering a lot. If you start to see fuzzy feet, then you know you need more fresh air. Alright. Now, basically these smaller tubs, I only use when I'm like pheno hunting, or when it's when it's like a single jar from an agar to grain transfer of a cross that I'm doing. So this is a new strand that I'm working with, and instead of freaking making one big tub of them and, you know, having aborts and, you know, whatnots and small big fruits, whatever, I like to freaking throw it in a smaller tote, see what pops up as a little present to isolate. Then from there, I'll pick the best fruit, clone it. And you can see in my other videos, if you're subscribing like you should, you'll see that in my other videos. But again, we're just covering these gaps. It's just where the bag pulled away from the side of the tote there, because you will get side pins. And on side pins, it's taking away energy it could be using for big fruits. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. So whamma, bamma, thank you, mama. All right. That's her. Put a label on it, stick it on a shelf, some ambient light, and you're good to go. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, guys. And we're almost to 1,000 subscribers, and I don't know what happens when we do, but I think something cool does, and I'd like to find out. So hit that like and subscribe button, guys, and any comments, please shoot them my way. I'd love to hear anything you guys have to say. And again, thanks for all your support. I couldn't or wouldn't be doing this without you guys. Peace.